In His name be He glorified. We heard the terrible news that two of the large collections of the wondrous Risale-i Nur Collection were going to be destroyed. Together with its other parts, those collections which are completely true and veracious and silence the scientific philosophers have been acquitted by the courts of Denizli and Ankara and become res judicata, and their acquittal has been twice upheld by the Court of Appeal. The works have been appreciated and uploaded in such centers of the Islamic world as Egypt, Damascus, Aleppo, Mecca, and Medina, and in recognition of that appreciation have been placed on the blessed tomb of the Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace, and on the black stone in the Kaaba. Like the other transgressions of the Republican People's Party, this vicious treatment is an unprecedented outrage. We Nur students could easily have demanded our rights from those cruel tyrants, but by reason of the powerful compassion that the Risale-i Nur has induced in us towards the innocent children and elderly of the heroic Turkish nation, which for centuries was the standard bearer of the Islam, and by virtue of the Qur'an's forbidding us from physical struggle and being a light we hold rather than a club, and due to the fundamental principle of our way to maintain public order, we have been unable to respond to those tyrants materially. For, God forbid, if there were a definite necessity, those who caused it on account of the communists and Masons would regret it 1,000 times over. Furthermore, in consequence of our observations, we have come to hold the firm opinion that general calamities occur whenever the Risale-i Nur is assaulted in the name of atheism and irreligion. This has been confirmed by the fact that 4 times severe earthquakes have occurred simultaneously with attacks, and many other things have happened. We have therefore alarmed at the powerful possibility that if such a decision is carried out, causing the believers to tremble, and the crime towards those wondrous, valuable, blessed collections is perpetrated, spiritual storms and tempests and earthquakes and plagues will be visited on this nation and country. For the coincidence 4 times of severe earthquakes with assaults on the Risale-i Nur has demonstrated this fact even to the blind. We even claimed this in court. No law in the world could seize and destroy the 400-page Zulfikar collection on the pretext of 2 pages expounding 2 verses of the Qur'an in line with the 350,000 commentaries of the exegetists, although it has most effectively served the belief of hundreds of thousands of people. Anyone with any conscience at all would understand this clear evidence, showing just how far from truth, right, and justice are the perpetrators of this malicious felony, who are the mere tools of irreligion, and shower them with curses and laughing. The heroic Democrat government prevented this evil deed, which was instigated in the time of the tyrannical, reactionary persecutors of the People's Party. We are hopeful that they will return to us without delay the works that for 3 years have been held by Afyon courts and are in no way reprehensible, and foremost our gilded, miraculous Qur'an which shows the coincidences, and we request this from the relevant offices. In the name of the Nur students, Hüsrev Sungur. In His name be He glorified. Our esteemed heroic brother, firstly, we wish to draw your attention to a matter of extreme importance. It should not be permitted that our large collections are destroyed. They should be saved whatever the price. Was the decision for their destruction given recently or previously? In your opinion, is this an official decision? Kindly learn the truth of the matter and let us know without delay. Secondly, we are sending the communication giving information about this matter to the heroic Sungur in Ankara and to the minister. We send you our greetings and respectfully kiss your hands. Ziya Zübeyir. Our dear and highly valued brother, heroic Sungur. Firstly, We send you our greetings and beseech Almighty God for your success in serving the Risale-i Nur. Secondly, we wish to inform you concerning a most important confidential matter. According to what we have heard, the 170 copies of the Staff of Moses and Zulfikar collections which have been confiscated by the Sparta judiciary are the very books the acquittal and return of which has been affirmed by the Justice Minister and which previously had been returned to our master in Denizli. We have absolutely no doubt that the decision taken for their destruction, which would bring the earth and the heavens to anger and cause all beings to weep, is a plan against the Democrats devised by the extremist members of the People's Party. For the extremist devils have understood that the Nur students protect the Democrats and are a powerful support for them. In this way, they are trying to turn the Nur students against the Democrats and cause the government's fall. Our master therefore refers it to you to make the very greatest efforts to thwart this plan of theirs, to save the collections, and to have all our books in Afyon returned to us. Ziya Zübeyir. To the Government's Ministry, we are disclosing to your esteemed self on the subject of this nation's fate a plan against the Democrats which is of the utmost seriousness and which a Satan even could not have hatched. It is as follows. The cunning fanatics of the People's Party have understood that the numerous students of the Nur community are protecting the Democrat Party. The community was formed by Bediüzzaman Said Nursi, who, with extraordinary self-sacrifice, has for 27 years striven unobtrusively with his works against the irreligion, absolute despotism, and severe tyranny in this country. Even in the regions the Nur students were most numerous, they covertly planted Ismet to spy on them and investigate them. The Nur students have, with powerful faith, devotedly served Islam and the nation's belief in every part of Anatolia and have been a means of the tyrant's dominion crumbling. In consequence, in order to turn the Nur students against the Democrats and make them hate them, the Sparta judiciary took the decision to burn the Staff of Moses and Zulfikar collections. Yet, these works save lives in this world and the next and have illuminated and given guidance to hundreds of thousands of believers and numbers of university-educated youths and have met with approval and applause in Arabia and Egypt and out of respect have been placed on the tomb of the Prophet Muhammad upon whom the blessings and peace and on the black stone in the Kaaba. We received news of this decision which would bring the heavens and earth to anger and cause all creatures to weep. However, these two lengthy works from the 119-part Risale-i Nur were acquitted unanimously in 1944 by Denizli Court, and its decision was ratified by the appeal court. The case became res judicata, and all the works were returned to their esteemed author and their owners. The vindictive decision given laterally by Afyon Court on the particular orders of the Communist Deputy of the People's Party was quashed by the former just chairman of the Court of Appeal. Finally, with the general amnesty, a veil was drawn over their attempted slanderous accusations and the case was dropped. Why the truth of the matter is this, and numerous defamatory publications are being freely disseminated, these moves are being made to destroy the truly veracious 400-page collection on the pretext of 2 pages of commentary on a verse from the Qur'an, and charges are being made of its violating law. The purpose of this, which is being carried out directly on account of the former tyrannical party, is to turn the hundreds of thousands of Nur students against the Democrats, to eliminate this powerful source of support for them, and to bring down the Democrat government. We are informing you of this diabolical plan in order to thwart it, and we offer our respects. In the name of the University Nur students, Yusuf Ziya Arun. Our most esteemed, blessed, beloved, and kind Master, the Directorate of Religious Affairs had the miraculous handwritten Qur'an in which the name of Allah is inscribed in gold, sent from Afyon Court, and the day before yesterday dispatched it to the Qur'an examination committee in Istanbul. It will be returned after having been examined by the committee, which will authorize its publication. Also, the consultative committee of the Directorate has studied the petition sent to the Directorate by the heroic Ahmet Altın of Akşehir, a copy of which he had earlier sent to our beloved master. In consequence, they are going to give one of the two sets of the Risale-i Nur, which our master sent as a gift to the Directorate to the consultative committee to study. We have an esteemed brother in the Directorate who is working to this end. In truth, Ankara, which was completely enveloped in darkness, has changed remarkably and is continuing to change gradually. The poisons that were being scattered have lost their effectiveness, as have the demonstrations of the youth. Sungur. My dear loyal brothers, firstly, Barakallah 1,000 times over. We declare MashaAllah and all praise be to God thousands of times, both at the verse collection being written out beautifully and correctly, and at the seized collections being saved from destruction, and your obtaining some of them as a sample. Secondly, I refer it to the leading members of the Madrasatul Zahra to reply suitably in my place to the letters that come to me. For instance, I am most gratified at the effective services rendered to the Risale-i Nur by Osman Nuri in Ankara, like a Hasan Feyzi there, and his preparing a house for me there next to his, and his being resigned at his own illness, as though, like Hasan Feyzi, he was assisting me when I was ill by alleviating it. I am still waiting here because we have not yet received our books from the court. I want to be present there when our Qur'an and some of our collections are printed, but I cannot go now because there are many pressing jobs here, so he should not feel offended. If he had not been there, I would have had to go myself. But he leaves no need for me. May God be pleased with him and grant him success. Thirdly, I affirm the letter sent by our steadfast, serious brother from Atabey, Abdullah Çavuş. The meanings I gave certain hadiths 40 years ago are again becoming apparent. Even the obdurate are compelled to admit it. Time is affirming the predictions made in the fifth ray of the shining lamp that absolute despotism suffers the torments of hell in this world too. The sincere letter of Ihsan from Samsun shows that a Samsun deputy who came here and obtained for himself a full set of the Risale-i Nur was the cause of a light scattering awakening in that region, for it has resulted in the appearance of such people as Ihsan. I am including both of them in my prayers. Fourthly, the correspondence of the alifs in the 29th word is truly a wonder, just as it is a wonder that they come out so beautifully when duplicated by machine. I send my greetings to everyone. The enduring one, he is the enduring one, your ill yet happy brother, Said Nursi. An important piece of news for the Nurjus. 22 May 1952. Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings forever and ever. Firstly, the leader of the new government has evidently understood the importance for the Islamic world and the nation of building a large Islamic university resembling Al-Azhar, the Madrasatul Zahra, in one province, a matter I have been following for the past 40 years. Sultan Reshad assigned 20,000 gold liras for its construction, while the former tyrannical government earmarked 150,000 liras, endorsed in the National Assembly by the signatures of 163 deputies. The President made the statement given below among all the pressing affairs of state, which I am sending to you as good news. Even if it is not realized materially, it is indeed auspicious that the idea of it has been understood. The President, Celal Bayar, said in the parliament while dealing with other high priority matters that the Minister of Education was making inquiries concerning the construction of the University of the East in the region of Van. He said, "All the difficulties will be surmounted for the founding of such an institution of learning in Van in the eastern provinces. Work on it will commence in the next financial year." This means that the university students who presented the biography gave the President to understand the value of the Risale-i Nur. Secondly, this very significant announcement by the President is a sign that it is now understood that the Risale-i Nur has performed invaluable services for this country and nation and will perform more. One should offer thanks, not complain, that all the difficulties the Nurjus have suffered have yielded this result of great consequence. Our dear, loyal brothers, Ziya and Abdul Muhsin. Our master says, Ashraf Edib has been a companion of mine in serving belief for 40 years. He now writes articles in Sabil Rashad and represents some of our acclaimed brothers who have now died and is a true mujahid of Islam. He is a protector of the Risale-i Nur, and if I am to die, I find true consolation in Ashraf Edib being among the Nurjus. Nevertheless, since the Risale-i Nur and the Nurjus have nothing to go with politics, and the Risale-i Nur can be the tool of nothing apart from divine pleasure, those attached to it do not want to get involved in social and political movements as far as they can. Only insofar as mujahids like Sabil Rashad and Büyükdoğu try to defend the truth of belief against the attacks of the people of misguidance, we praise and applaud them with all our lives and spirits and are friends and brothers to them, but not in respect of politics. For those who come to receive instruction in belief may not be considered in biased fashion. While receiving lessons, there is no difference between friends and foe. Political bias damages this, sincerity is harmed. For this reason, the Nurjus have endured unparalleled torments, yet have exploited the Risale-i Nur for nothing. They have never grasped the club of politics. It was imagined that because the Risale-i Nur had broken absolute disbelief and eliminated the anarchy underlying it, and the absolute despotism above it, that it had some sort of connection with politics. Whereas the Risale-i Nur's interpreter has claimed in courts of law that he would not exchange a single matter of belief for rule over the whole world, and has proved it with the way he has lived for 25 years and with other indications. The enduring one, he is the enduring one, your brothers, Sadık, Ibrahim, Zübeyir. My dear loyal brothers, firstly, we congratulate you with our whole life and spirit on your activity and successes. The activities and triumphs of the Madrasatul Zahra are a remedy for all my pains and illnesses. Secondly, I wrote a note for the staff of Moses being translated into good Arabic. I was going to send it with Zübeyir to Sayyid Salih in Ankara. I was also going to send to you, via Ankara, a sincere letter from a retired officer in Tarsus and a letter requesting some books from the Risale-i Nur. Then, suddenly Ibrahim Efendi arrived here, having come as far as Afyon together with his wife in the name of the devoted Nurjus of Elmalı near Antalya, where he works at publishing the Risale-i Nur, so I sent them with him. With greetings to everyone. My dear loyal brothers, I am referring an important matter to the leading members of the Madrasatul Zahra. Sayyid Salih said that he had understood from his journey in Arabia that there was much need for the staff of Moses there, and that it would be most beneficial and should be translated into Arabic. My condition and illnesses do not permit me, so In my place, the leading students of the Madrasat al-Zahra should get in touch with 4 different places with a view to having a good translation done. One letter should be sent to Al-Azhar University with Kılınçali, where a number of literary persons should translate it. Another should be sent to the Directorate of Religious Affairs in Ankara, where 1 or 2 scholars who sincerely appreciate the Risale-i Nur and are attached to it should translate it. Another letter they should send to my brother Abdülmecid, who is the Mufti of Ürgüp near Kayseri, and who, although he should have worked with all his strength for the Risale-i Nur these last 20 years, he didn't. So, to make up for it, he should now work with all his might at translating it into Arabic. And the other should be sent to the scholars in the region of Sparta, who are within the fold of the Risale-i Nur, dividing up the staff of Moses among themselves. Each should translate a part into Arabic. My dear loyal brothers, firstly, we were delighted at your surpassing good news, which is a preliminary to the Risale-i Nur's complete freedom. The Sparta judiciary held the books in a house for 3 years, so as its rent, in exchange for that 300 liras, sent me 50 copies of the biography printed in the new letters at the price of 2 liras per copy out of the 500 liras that was left to me. So the price will be the equivalent of those 300 liras. Sent me copies of the staff of Moses and Zulfikar to the value of 50 liras, since they have suffered imprisonment for 4 years and are most precious in my eyes. I am sending you the 50 liras now. Secondly, Barakallah, Mashallah to Nazif 1,000 times over. He has proved that he is a second Husrev and that Inebolu is a second Sparta. The Madrasat al-Zahra is the most important matter in the biography, and I reckon that Nazif's publications have played a role in the President's serious efforts to found an Eastern Al-Azhar University called the University of the East, which bears the meaning of the Madrasat al-Zahra. Thirdly, write in reply to the meaningful letter of the Imam Süleyman of Baraklı near Dinar that it is definitely true that the Prophet Muhammad, upon whom blessings and peace, praised the Turks. He indicates their importance in several places. There are hadiths, but because I do not have any hadith books with me and do not know the correct wording. But it is certain that the Turkish nation was praised by him. One example is the hadith about Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror. The letter sent by Hulusi Bey, one of the oldest Nur students, is very fine and meaningful and urges his friends in Ankara to enter the fold of the Risale-i Nur. It shows too that he offers a fine example with the unwavering services he has performed for the Risale-i Nur these last 25 years. I send many greetings to all my brothers and sisters. My dear loyal brothers, firstly, endless thanks be to Almighty God that we have joyfully received 5 copies of the Staff of Moses and the ratifying stamp of the Unseen, which had been imprisoned in the court for the last 3 years. May Almighty God be pleased with you forever and ever. Secondly, the errors in the copy of Zulfikar returned by the court had not been corrected. The lam in the 8th line on page 110 of the 4th addendum to the miracles of the Qur'an is wrong. It should be la, because in the Qur'an, lam is 30,000 and la 19,000. Thirdly, in a letter written in the new letters, a person from the Smerbank factory in Sparta asks a question. You can advise him for me to read the treatise on divine determining. I am both unwell and unable to write personal letters. Also, Zubair has gone to Ankara. Anyway, I don't know the new letters. I am sending it to you for your information. Fourthly, I have sent my own substance, another 50 liras, with the driver Abdurrahman. You can work out how much I owe for the books you sent me and the words collection. This was written in haste. I send many greetings to everyone. My dear loyal brothers, firstly, I congratulate you. The petition sent this time by Husrev to the ministers is a splendid historical document. But in a wire I received from Sungur a couple of days ago, it says that orders have been given for the return of 185 words. We could not understand the numbers here. We asked the clerk of the telegraph office. He had evidently written it down wrong. I heard the machine with my own ears. It means all the works are being returned. I wondered if possibly they had counted some parts of the 133 diseases, making it 185. We could not understand it. Also, as reported in the Yeni Sabah newspaper, we heard that the president said about a large Islamic university called the University of the East, the Madrasatu Zahra, that they were endeavoring to overcome all the difficulties to found it. God willing, they will be compelled to build it for the benefit of the country and nation, for it is a goal I have been pursuing for the past 40 years. Secondly, I have sent to a number of important places several of the copies of Zulfikar and the staff of Moses you sent, which like us were imprisoned for 3 years. For instance, Abdurrahim from Wastan, who is Imam in the mosque in Jazira and is one of my old students, came all the way here to visit me. I gave him 10 of the most important books. But then I remembered that in 2 places in the 4th addendum to the miracles of the Qur'an, in Zulfikar, one in the 8th line and one in the 10th, Lam had been written instead of La, but in the Qur'an, Lam is 30,000 and La 19,000. This error had been partially corrected in the other copies, but it had not been corrected in the copies of Zulfikar that were held by your court. I had forgotten this here. I am referring this to you via the Mufti of Jazira. Write to Imam Abdurrahim and ask him to correct this error of the scribe. In this way, the leading students of the Madrasatu Zahra will also be in contact with Jazira. I also understood from Husrev's letter that Zubayr had mistakenly sent there the note he was going to send to Nazif. Husrev also made a small mistake, for I had sent a short letter to Nazif about the 10th principle of the 24th word, not the 24th letter. There is no copy of it left here. I had told him to send the copy of the 10th principle to Nazif so that he might send us a copy of the note. Nevertheless, his brilliant, long petition reduced to nothing that small error and had it forgiven. What this means is this: as a meritorious act, Nazif duplicated on the machine Jevshan al-Kebir, which is a supplication much favored by the Nurjus. He had written to me about duplicating with it the piece in the footnotes about its wondrous merits and virtues which are described in figurative hadiths. I told him that I had read the footnotes only 3 or 4 times, although I had recited the Jevshan every day for the last 35 years. To add it verbatim would be inappropriate, for opponents, an atheist might make it a pretext to criticize it. God willing, in the near future, the blessed Jevshan al-Kabir will illuminate the Nurjus and fire them with enthusiasm. Thirdly, the Nurju University students in Ankara and Istanbul are printing 2,000 copies of a guide for youth. I assume it is the large guide. That would be better. God willing, it will be a substantial guide for the young people. Write to Kılınç Hacı Ali so that he is in touch with the Madrasatu Zahra and say that literary scholars should translate the staff of Moses. Then, by means of the translation, those masters of the Islamic world will be concerned with the Risale-i Nur. Fourthly, I am curious to learn whether or not our brother Marangoz Ahmed has returned safely from the Hajj. Also, write to Husrev and his assistants that Mustafa Gül and his companions should add the prayer which is at the end of Zulfikar and the staff of Moses to the end of the words collection. Unending greetings to all of you. The Enduring One, He is the Enduring One, your brother, Said Nursi. Muallim Osman was Ceylan's friend in prison. He learned a true lesson from him and has the ability to be a second Ceylan. It is astonishing. I received a letter saying that the two Sufi-inclined people I mention in my prayers every day by name within the circle of the Nurjus had attacked me and the Risale-i Nur with the idea of selling themselves. I was not offended and prayed for them even more. Just like years ago with the elderly well-known sheikh who maligned us in Istanbul due to the machinations of the former People's Party, I looked on them as brothers to me and friends, and I forgave them. But I would like them to read the two flashes on sincerity. My brothers, you should not be offended by such people and do not get into arguments with them. Said Nursi.